You're listening to the JD Rucker Show. Let's begin. What an amazing day to be an American. Donald Trump, our next president of the United States, our past and future president. It is a great day to be an American. It really, truly is. And I feel blessed. I feel very grateful to God for making this happen. I've seen a lot of people out there, and I'm very, very glad about that. I've seen a lot of people out there acknowledge miraculous. This really was God's hand in making this election too big to rig, and making this support for Donald Trump so massive that I hope that the Democrat Party is going to make some changes in their ideology. I hope that leftists will start maybe coming back to reality just a little bit, not a whole lot, just a little bit. I do see a lot of people out there, a lot of conservatives, especially on they are out there, gloating. They're putting out memes. They're saying, "Oh, look at this. Here's the leftist tears flowing," and they post TikToks of girls out there crying, boys out there crying, and old women crying, and they post media personalities dressed in all black or going completely unhinged. I get it. Hold on. I posted on X about this. Let me get that pulled up. There it is. So I posted, I see a lot of MAGA gloating. I absolutely get it. And after the way we've been treated, it's 100% justifiable. But to me, the best way to gloat is to prove ourselves right by making America great again. I know it sounds cliche, but that really is what we need to do. The leftists won't thank us. They won't acknowledge that we were right and they were wrong. They will take the freedoms that we defend and use them against us. But most of them are going to be insufferable, whether their lives get better under Trump or if their lives were made worse under Harris. Let's do our part to fix this broken nation. Then we can say you're welcome to them even when they don't say thank you. And I do hope, I really do hope that that's the case, that we are able to move on. It's been an extraordinarily stressful, anxiety-ridden several months. So I'm not saying, all right, crack the whip, get back out there. And some of you will. I will. But for a whole lot of people, I would say the vast majority of Americans, whether left, right, center, doesn't matter, they are tired. And they do need a break. And it's understandable. Look, again, we've never had an election like this. We've never had an election season that has been so tumultuous, so, in many ways, dangerous. We've never seen anything. This has been a history-making election season. And not just because one of the candidates almost got assassinated twice that we know of. Not just because we had one candidate suddenly drop out just a few months before the election. We had another candidate who was installed as the candidate who had never received a single primary vote. We had corporate media going further to the, we'll call it the what's the best way to put it? They revealed themselves more so this election than in any past election, even 2020. And if we were to look at the stats, and I'm sure the people over at wherever, Newsbusters, MRC or one of those guys will run the stats, and then we'll find out that yes, this particular election, there was more of a left-wing bias in corporate media than even in 2020 or 2022. I truly believe we'll find that, because it was there. And of course, the same thing can be said about big tech. Just a quick note, I thought it was hilarious. You want to know just how absolutely unabashedly anti-Trump and anti-America Google is. We've seen them do some crazy things, but I think the craziest thing I've ever seen was what they did yesterday. When you tried to type into Google, where do I go to vote for Harris, you would get a list of places. When you tweeted, or when you did a search for where do I go to vote for Trump, you would get articles about Harris. It's like, what? How, what? That made no sense. It made no sense at all. But we had a miraculous victory. And look, I've said it before. Let's go back. So 2016, in September of 2016 is when I declared officially, I said, look, Trump's going to win. Yeah, and I had a lot of backlash, especially from the right, from Never Trumpers. I was on a show. I'm not going to say who, but I was on a show with a very popular conservative broadcaster who at the time was anti-Trump. He's not today, but he was anti-Trump back then. And we had a little debate. I said, look, I am at about 85% sure that Trump's going to win. He's like, there's no way. There's no way it's going to happen. It can't happen. And he wasn't saying so. He was truly, I think he believed that. I think he actually, it wasn't just that he didn't like Trump because he wasn't going to vote for Harris or for Hillary. He just didn't like that Trump was there. But even that, he was taking from a point of logic. He was making logical arguments about why he thought that Trump was going to lose. And my argument was, number one, I thought, there's going to be something happens in October. We know that the October surprise, I think, is going to hit Hillary. They're going to try to throw October surprise at Trump, and they're going to throw them at Hillary. But I said they've already thrown a bunch of stuff at Trump, and none of it stuck. So I think they blew it. I think they unleashed they pushed the nitro button too soon in many ways. Because I think if they had held a lot of their quote-unquote bombshells about Trump in 2016, waited until, dropping a bunch of October surprises, that might have had a different effect. Instead, they were throwing them out there early, and it didn't work. Did not work. But anyway, so point is that I had predicted in September, and then, of course, I reiterated it in October that Donald Trump was going to win that election. Leading up to the 2020 election, I said, Trump's going to win, but they're going to steal it. Can't believe I had Lieutenant General McInerney on my show before the 2020 election, and we discussed how we thought that there were going to be some massive shenanigans, that Trump was going to get the most votes, but that they were going to steal it for Joe Biden. And again, that was day. Well, I wish had been earlier. Maybe then we could have done something about it. But it was within a few days before the election in 2020 is when McInerney and I were talking about a company that nobody had heard of at the time. Talking about a company called Dominion. Talking about these other companies and talking about other ways that they were going to use mail ballots to manufacture votes. And we both agreed that Trump would win the 2020 election, but would likely have it stolen from him through massive widespread voter fraud. So then fast forward to this election, the last couple of weeks, I've been saying that I'm growing in confidence. Every day I'm growing more confident that they being Trump and of course God, will make it too big to rig. I knew, and we all knew, I think, that the Democrats, the uniparty swamp really, the deep state and the globalist elite cabal would do everything within their power to manufacture a Kamala Harris win. And they were going to do this not by trying to earn the vote, but by trying to manufacture as many votes as possible. We knew that they were going to have this voter fraud scheme, this election stealing scheme that was going to be even bigger than 2020. But through the last couple of weeks before the election, I've been growing in confidence and saying that, yes, they are going to try, but I do believe that it's going to be too big to rig. And here we are today. I guess I am tooting my horn a bit. Yeah, I guess I should. I nailed it. I nailed it. The last three elections with my predictions. And I'm very happy. I wasn't happy about nailing it in 2020. That's for sure. But this goes to show you something. I said this before, but I'll say it. It's worth saying again. If we had our way, you and me, if we had our way, if we were in control, if we could make things, we could determine who wins this, who does that, who gets punished for this, who gets punished for that, who gets rewarded for this, who gets rewarded for that. If that was within our power and our power alone, then we would have made sure that Trump won in 2020, wouldn't we? How many of you would have said, "Oh, no. We want Trump to lose in 2020 and then come back in 2024"? Nobody was saying that. Nobody was saying that, except for God. God was saying that. God's will, clearly, based upon what we now know, was for Trump to lose in 2020. And I believe that it's because America's last chance, America's last gasp, so to speak, is now. I think that we needed to hit rock bottom in order to have a chance at bouncing back. If Trump had won in 2020, I don't think that his second term would have been as strong as many of us would have hoped. Obviously, it would have been far better than Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. We know that. But what if, based upon God's wisdom, not ours, what if what America really needed was to hit rock bottom with Biden and Harris, which allows us to bounce back up even higher under a second Trump term from 2025 to 2029? None of us would have wanted that before, I'm saying. If we had the choice back in early November of 2020, we would have said, yeah, no, we need Trump in. If Trump loses, we're done for. That's what we were saying. And then they stole the election. Biden's put in there, and we almost did. I mean, look, at this point, I think the verdict's still out. I don't know if Trump's going to be able to fix this. I know he's going to try, though, and that's better than we can say about Kamala Harris. But here we are. Now we're going to have Trump for 4 more years. 4 years that I would argue are even more crucial than the last 4 years have been. On the global scale, on the worldwide scale, this is the time. Now, ahead of 2030, this is the time when we needed Trump the most. And God knew that, knows that. And we didn't. We didn't know that. We would have had Trump win in 2020. But God said no. God said, just, you guys buckle down, pray, spread the gospel, do what you can to protect yourself, protect your family, protect your community, and then suffer through it. Get a taste of what could be. And we did. And we didn't like that taste at all. And then God said, all right, here's Trump. Now what are you going to do with him? And that is the question that we have to answer. That's the $1 trillion question, the quadrillion dollar question. Because we got what we wanted so far. Now, are we going to do something with this movement? Are we going to take the incredible blessing that we have been given as a nation? Are we going to be able to turn it around? And it's so important that I'm saying we, and I hope that you understand the implication there. Because if it's like, okay, we did our job, we got Trump into office, now go fix it, that ain't going to fly. Okay? That ship don't sail. That dog won't hunt. We still have a lot of work to do, a ton of work. Maybe more so now than we did before. Before it was easy. Under Biden Harris, protect yourself. Keep your head down. Combat authoritarianism and totalitarianism as much as you can. Focus on local stuff, but there's not much that we can do. Try not to get murdered by an illegal alien. Try not to get caught up by one of these crazy crime sprees. Try not to get just accosted by any radical leftists. That was our role. Try to survive the economic collapse that the Biden-Harris regime has been implementing on us for the last 4 years. Try not to get into any more wars. I mean, we've had a hard 4 years. But now things are not as simple. Now we have to fight. Fight, fight, fight. As Trump said, fight, fight, fight. That battle does begin. It begins now. And like I said, I get it. It's been a rough several weeks, several months. Last 4 years has been very rough on us. If you want to take a short breather, great. but get ready to get back to work. Get ready to defend this nation, to rebuild multiple facets of this nation. Can't just sit back and do nothing. Can't sit back and think, okay, Republicans, you got the Senate, you got Trump. Now go get it. We're going to go play. I was about to say, you're going to go play Nintendo. I don't think nobody plays Nintendo anymore. Is that even a thing anymore? I don't know. Don't go play, son of a gun, I almost had it. Minecraft. Or we're going to go play. You get the idea. Okay, butchered it. But still, you know the thing. Time to get back to work. I'm going to be making some changes. As I've said before, I'm going to be making some changes. We were going to head in one direction if Trump won, another direction if Harris won. Now that we know which direction we're going, now we can focus on what changes we're going to make to the show, to my various websites, to a whole lot of things. And these aren't just changes for me. Hopefully, they're changes for many of you. Changes of our focus, our intent, our actions, our pathway, our future. We have an opportunity. Let's seize that opportunity. Let's not just be like, okay, all right, mission accomplished. Time to play Nintendo. Let's take a short break. And when I get back, we'll go over some of those changes, so stay tuned. After Trump was elected president, I received a couple of communications from people. One via phone, well, text, and the other one via Twitter, X, direct message. People asking me, "Hey, now that Trump's back in office, is the economy going to get better?" And I said, "Yeah, in some ways it definitely will. Obviously, I mean, just Trump's presence alone will have a dramatic impact on the economy, and it will take things to the next level. But with that said, the threats still remain. Trump, Harris, didn't matter. They're still pushing, they being the powers that be, are still pushing for central bank digital currencies. They're still pushing for de-dollarization and the rise of BRICS. They're still pushing for the advancement of a worldwide economy. And while Trump will do everything in his power to prevent that, to at least slow it down, some of it is not within even the power of the United States of America itself. And this is why there is no reason, and you can see by the gold prices, there's no reason to doubt physical precious metals as a proper way to hedge against what is coming, because it's still coming. You know, there were certain scenarios that would have happened if Kamala Harris had won, and there are certain scenarios that will happen now that President Trump has won, and those scenarios still point in the same exact direction. That's the reason why even central banks are still buying up as much gold and silver as possible. That's why banks, financial institutions are recommending to their people, buy as much gold and silver as possible. I work with a faith-driven gold company. There are a lot of gold companies out there that get recommended by hosts. The one that I like happens to be driven by faith, and they actually do a tremendous job versus the competition. You can check out Genesis Gold Group by going to rumblegold.com. That's rumblegold.com, or read my testimony over at jdrucker.com/gold. So now that Trump has been elected, it's mission accomplished, right? Everything's going to be hunky-dory. We don't have to do anything. We can just sit back and absorb all the MAGA love, all the MAGA joy, all the MAGA prosperity. It's all coming without any effort from us, correct? Of course, you know that I'm being facetious. And as I've said in the past, I do believe that my show and my various websites, my podcasts, whatever, the things that I do, I try to gear them towards making America great again. It's not just a MAGA thing, by the way. It really is about the America First concept. There are certain areas where I completely disagree with President Trump. And those areas are one of the things that I will try to do is maybe coax him, he's always listened to his people, right? He's listened to us. He's listened to his base. And I think that his goal, his intention in the second term of saving America, building a legacy of being the greatest president of all time. I think a lot of people, especially on the left, might laugh at that concept, but that is what's in his brain. He really, truly believes, and I believe it too, to be clear. He really, truly believes that if he's able to take this nation that is in such disarray and lift it back up to a point of prosperity, safety, security, world standing, that he will be up there with the ranks of Lincoln, of George Washington, of the men who have served in the office that he will now fill again. He will be up there in those ranks, and I believe in his perspective, in his opinion, he can actually exceed those levels. So I hope he does. I truly hope he does. I hope that he is able to unify this nation, that he's able to win over the radicals that have taken over so many institutions, education, media, of course, that he's able to fight through Robert F. Kennedy Jr., fight Big Pharma, that he's able to fight through Elon Musk, the massive amounts of waste, particularly bureaucratic waste, that has just decimated the wallets of Americans. He wants to use tariffs. Great. He also wants to reduce or even eliminate income tax. Great. But to be able to do either of those things, he's going to need to make some massive, massive cuts. And that's why I'm very hopeful. I would say between making America healthy again with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and making government efficient for the first time in over a century, that between those two and him doing what he's doing, especially with him, hopefully, Lord willing, closing the border, partially or even wholly, I'm okay with that. Close the border altogether until we get this situation at home fixed. I'm good with that. And I'm a legal immigrant, to be clear. But I would be okay with a temporary hold on legal immigration and a complete cessation of illegal immigration, as long as, that will give us enough time to deport the illegals that are here already. And look, I'm not going to get into a policy battle about, you can't deport all 50 million of them or however many are here. I mean, maybe we can. I don't know. But let's at least, I think hopefully all of us can agree that let's at least get rid of the criminals. Let's get rid of Tren de Aragua and MS-13 and all of these very dangerous people. Let's get rid of anybody who's on or near the terrorist watch list. Let's do all of those things. And so between him doing that and hopefully fixing the economy, Elon doing his thing, RFK Jr. doing his thing, JD Vance doing something, maybe even with foreign policy, maybe he can be like Biden was over in Ukraine. Maybe JD can go to Ukraine and fix that debacle, and hopefully not try to take 10% for the big guy, or try to get his kids. His kids are probably too young to work for Ukrainian companies, but you never know. Let's hope that we have an honest version of a international policy expert in JD Vance. And there's many roles that you could put JD Vance in. The dude is super, super smart, super talented. He's up there. I was skeptical. I really was. I was skeptical when he was running for the Senate. I was skeptical. I didn't even support him in his primary. Okay? I didn't. But he has proven himself to be a patriot. He's proven himself to not be a never Trump rhino, which is what I had expected, to be clear. And I was wrong. And look, when I'm wrong, I say I'm wrong. I'm not one of those guys. I always have to be right. I happen to be right most of the time. But when I'm wrong, hey, I will say I was wrong about JD Vance, and I do finally fully approve of him. But anyway, we're not talking about JD. We're not talking about even Trump. We're talking about you and me and the changes that we need to make. As I said, this isn't something where we just sit back and let them do their thing. We have to participate. We have to get involved. For me, I can't speak for you, but I can speak for me. We are going to be making some changes. Obviously, if Kamala had won, then this show and all of my sites would have been geared towards basically becoming the resistance, right? We didn't really do that so much during the Biden years because it wasn't necessary. Not to say that he didn't need resistance, but because there wasn't, I shouldn't say it wasn't necessary. It wasn't in my wheelhouse. Whereas opposing the globalist elite cabal, which Kamala Harris would have represented, that would have been totally different. Anyway, Like I'm more of an end game guy versus the stepping stone guy, right? Well, now that end game has been averted, Lord willing, and now we have a different series of battles to fight. One of them is an opponent that is already very much weakened, and we are on the show going to be going wholeheartedly after corporate media. Elon Musk calls it legacy media. I get it, but you have to understand there are people even in quote unquote new media that still need to be addressed. You can't just say we're going after legacy media, because guess what? Facebook is not legacy media, but they still have to be addressed. Google is not legacy media, but they definitely have to be addressed. They need to be exposed. If I can accomplish one thing, just one thing, if I can pull a Scott Pressler and focus on one individual thing. He won Pennsylvania, okay? Scott Pressler won Pennsylvania for Donald Trump, period. You can't convince me of otherwise, because he focused on one thing. If I could focus on one thing outside of the gospel, we'll talk about that here in a minute, but if I could focus on one problem, it would be exposing Google and getting as many Americans, as many patriots as possible to stop using Google altogether. Don't search on it. Don't use any of their apps, any of their products. Purge yourself from this evil company. It's funny. They actually, their slogan used to be try not to be evil or something like that. Whatever. It was something weird. They took that off. Talk about a declaration, It's like try not to be evil, or try to do no evil, or whatever. And now you're gonna make me. I'm not gonna look it up, but whatever it was, they literally changed that, took it off, and it's like no, we're gonna be evil. Sorry, they basically announced it and they've declared it with their actions over the years. And so, if I could focus on one thing, it would be going after corporate media. And that does include big tech, and that does include legacy media, as Elon Musk calls it. And that includes even those, maybe even especially those, who still own some or a good chunk of the conservative viewership. Look, Fox News. Fox News got kudos because Brett Baer asked a few tough questions of Kamala Harris. Fox News got kudos during the election because, oh, look, they called the election early. They didn't pull another Brett Baer calling Arizona the day of, or the moment before, as soon as it was possible, but not calling Florida forever. I mean, they didn't do that. They did all those things, but they don't deserve to be redeemed. They haven't done enough to be redeemed. Fox News is still controlled opposition. So I would want to expose them. And there are others out there. There are others in conservative media, including a lot of popular show hosts who we will be working on going after. But I don't want this to, you're just going to rip on the competition. No, I'm going to go after the left hard. I'm going to go after everybody hard. But there's so much more to it. I shouldn't have picked this to do this segment because I've only got about a minute left. So I'll have to continue it after this segment. But yeah, we want to make major changes to this show. And I encourage you, all of you, to help me decide which, because look, I'm immersed in news all day, every day, 7 days a week, unfortunately. And there's no end in sight for that. And I'm not complaining. I'm just saying that I wish I wasn't. I would love to spend more time spreading the gospel. Lord willing, I'll be able to someday. But for now, my shtick, if you will, is to disseminate the right news. And so I ask you, dear readers, followers, listeners, viewers, you tell me. Go to jdrucker.com/talk. What do you want me to address? Because I can address pretty much anything. Anything. Let's take a quick break. We'll be right back.
A large retail store just canceled a huge order, leaving us with a ton of extra My Pillows. But you know what? That's their loss. I'm going to make it your gain. For the first time ever, you get standard classic My Pillows for wholesale prices, only $14.88. I can't believe I'm even saying that. Only $14.88. But it gets even better. For a limited time, I'm going to offer my entire classic collection at wholesale prices. Upgrade to a queen size My Pillow for just $18.88. King size only $1 more. Get my body pillows for $29.88 and multi-use My Pillows for only $9.88. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on the screen. Use your promo code to take advantage of wholesale pricing for the first time ever on TV, including my standard size My Pillow, only $14.88. They've never been offered this low before. We have limited quantities at this price, so limit's going to be 10, and once they're gone, they're gone.
Whether you've been a prepper for a long time, or maybe you're just getting started, you're just looking around and thinking how crazy it is, we usually cover the basics. You get your food, you get your water, you get your ammunition. Don't forget your ammo. You get your battery chargers, solar battery chargers, or whatever. But a lot of times I think people will forget their meds. Okay, whether it's chronic meds, antibiotics, I think a lot of people don't even realize that you can stock up on that stuff. They go to the doctor, they go to the pharmacy, and the pharmacist said, oh, here's your 2 months supply or whatever. Well, you can actually stock up on a lot of these meds by going to jdrucker.com/meds. You'll talk to the good folks over at Jace Medical. They can get you a 12-month supply of certain prescription drugs. They can get you emergency meds, all sorts of good stuff, things that you may or may not need, but it's always good to have it on hand because I guarantee you, even if you don't think you need it today, you might need it in the future. jdrucker.com/meds. Big change is coming. They need to come, and they need to come for, I think, all of us. Look, we've been given an opportunity. It's a blessing. I would argue that one of the worst things that we could possibly do is to squander any of the blessings that we are given. This is our time to prove, in many ways, what we couldn't prove before. Well, not necessarily that we couldn't, but that we didn't. We did not prove. We did not take advantage of those first 2 years when Trump was president and he had control of the House and the Senate. There was a lot of infighting, a lot of opposition, and rightly so, to people like Paul Ryan, Mitch McConnell. We're going to have somebody different this time around running both the House and the Senate. It's not clear yet who's going to be running the House at all, whether it's even going to be the Republicans or Democrats. I think it will be the Republicans. I think that Mike Johnson is going to continue to be Speaker of the House. So we'll get to see. This is his time to prove that he's not a rhino. So far, I think he is. Rhino is probably the wrong word. He's not truly dedicated to the America First movement. And I think he was a big disappointment to a lot of people. I didn't know him well enough to be disappointed in him, but I know a lot of people were. I was pushing for Byron Donalds myself, but that didn't happen. So we've got Mike Johnson. So far, he's been a disappointment. Let's see if he can do better as Speaker of the House with a Republican president and a Republican Senate. Now, who's going to be the Senate Majority Leader? We'll see. I have my druthers, but obviously none of the people that I would want to be are ever even going to be considered. So we'll take the rhino of least consequence, I guess, if we have to. There's nothing we can do to change that, unfortunately. I really wish, and that should be something to consider, because let's face it, the Senate Majority Leader is a made-up position anyway. I mean, it really is. And so perhaps if we're playing make-believe, then let's make believe that the voters in the party that is in control, I don't know, maybe that's a horrible idea. I'd never even thought through it. Let me think through it before I propose that, because it's not like it would ever happen anyway. The Senate is in many ways impenetrable, just so set in their ways, and their ways are dedicated to the uniparty swamp. So we'll see how that goes. But we have other things to change, and there are things that we can affect, things that we can actually impact in our time of blessing, our time of renewal. We have an opportunity. This is one of the reasons that I said in the beginning of the show that we shouldn't be dwelling so much on owning the libs, on boasting about our win, prancing around like gloating. as I put it. Maybe we need to get focused on unifying this country and demonstrating what it's like. Because again, there's a lot of, we got a mandate. Okay, at least Trump did. Trump got a mandate in the form of winning the popular vote, winning a huge landslide so far. What appears to be, we'll see when all the dust settles. But as of now, it does appear that he won a tremendous landslide in the Electoral College. And they can't say, oh, but popular vote, popular vote. Trump's going to win the popular vote as well. I do believe that. When all is said and done, he's still going to be on top. And we can discuss how that happened and look at the numbers, and it's sort of kind of weird there. But we'll talk about that some other time. I'm not in numbers today. We're talking about changes. And there are certain things that I'm going to be taking on. As I mentioned before, I want to take on corporate media. That's first and foremost. We need to destroy them. This isn't a matter, oh, we need to fix Google, we need to fix CNN, we need to fix Fox News. No, we need to just minimize. Destroy is probably, it's an impossible to achieve goal. We need to minimize their impact, minimize their influence. We proved that they didn't have nearly as much control as they thought they had. Now we have to take them down a notch or 2 or 10. They shouldn't have any influence, really. Not over us, not over patriotic Americans. Look, if some leftists still want to be indoctrinated by what's being pushed out there by the education system, by corporate media, by all the wokesters out there, fine. There's not much we can do about that other than try to oppose their ideology, but I'll get to that here in a second. But no, we absolutely positively can, in my humble opinion, minimize the effects, the impact of corporate media and all of that encompasses, including big tech. Speaking of wokeness, woke lunacy, that's definitely going to be on my radar. Like, people like Matt Walsh are out there doing a very good job. I would say close to an excellent job. Not quite excellent, but very good. A very good job of fighting against the lunacy, because it really is lunacy. It's lunacy that there's two degrees of lunacy here. There's lunacy, what they're doing, putting men in women's sports, sending men into women's bathrooms, having men dress and undress in women's locker rooms, having men pretending to be women and making it a crime in some ways to call them by what they are, because men are men, women are women. There's very, 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 very few people where you can actually say that they're sort of not a man or a woman. We're talking, what is that, 1 out of a million? I don't know. But that's not what we're seeing. We're seeing, like, lately it's been like 1 out of 10 is gender dysphoric. This is a mental illness. It always has been considered a mental illness, and rightly so, logically so. Common sense tells us it's a mental illness, as does the science. But yeah, they flipped all that on its head. Then, of course, there is the inherent racism on the left. This racism is geared. It's. Oh, well, let me get to the point here first before I go into the details. Number one, there's the lunacy itself. Number two, the second degree of lunacy is the fact that many of them, not all of them, but many of them don't even realize that it's lunacy, which means that there's a strong delusion of some sort over millions, maybe even tens of millions of Americans, where they don't see anything wrong with it. It's one thing to be, you take, for example, a degenerate pedophile. Some of them may not realize there's anything wrong with it, but a lot of them do. A lot of them operate, they live their lives doing the horrible things that they do, and they didn't realize it's wrong. A lot of them feel this way, but don't act upon it. Thankfully, praise God for that. But even they realize that it's wrong. There's a lot of people out there who not only do they think that there's nothing wrong with men beating women in sports, they think that you and I are wrong for thinking that there's anything wrong with that. So we have to combat the lunacy itself, and then the brainwashed perceptions regarding that lunacy. And it's not going to be easy, because it has become rapidly, deeply embedded. Don't forget, it wasn't just a couple, 2-3 years ago when there was still, at least it wasn't, it was becoming common, but it wasn't so widely accepted in this emotionally driven, unhinged way. Today, what we're seeing is emotionally driven and completely unhinged. And I can say that, and I'm not being bigoted or discriminatory or transphobic. I'm transphobic is I don't have a fear of transgender people. I don't have there's nothing. I don't have a hatred towards them as individuals. And here's the thing: I don't even have anything against them doing what they do, as long as they don't promote it or push it onto others. Seriously. Now, there's a difference. Let me be clear about that, because I think that those words could be used against me if I were to say that and then start talking about, for example, the gospel. Well, aren't you promoting or pushing the gospel onto others? You say that we shouldn't do that. When I'm talking about the promotion and pushing of transgenderism onto others, I'm specifically talking about the indoctrination by teachers, by adults in positions of power over children, that get them to transition physically, definitely emotionally, but oftentimes physically, into an irreversible state. That is very, very different from talking to somebody about the gospel, or even talking to somebody about against the gospel. Look, if somebody wants to oppose the Bible, then the law allows that. And I would defend that right. I'm against their perspective, but I would defend their right to do that. If they want to spread Hinduism, if they want to spread Islam, Judaism, atheism, anything. If they're spreading a religious belief, it's protected. But anytime they spread those beliefs, there's no operation involved that's removing genitals permanently, mutilating them to the point that the person receiving the gospel or hearing the words of the Quran or hearing any other religions, there's no operation involved that permanently prevents them from ever having children, that permanently prevents the recipient of that information from ever being able to have a family, other than through adoption, of course, which is that's an option, but we'll discuss that another day. Or even, let's say it's not an operation, let's say it's hormones. This brainwashing and indoctrination that's being done by our public institutions, schools, medical professionals, counselors, these people in authority over children, they're the ones that we need to stop. So when I say they're pushing and promoting this, that's not transphobic. Again, I have nothing against transgender adults, transgender people. They're fine. Do your thing, you do your thing. I got my sins, you got your sins. You know, we all get to face judgment at the end. But when they push it, and then when they get these kids, these impressionable, vulnerable children, to commit the rest of their lives based upon decisions that they're making when they don't understand the decision, that's wrong. And it's wrong prima facie. You can't make an argument for it. And that's when I say that there's this lunacy on both sides. Not on both sides, but there's this lunacy. It's a double-edged lunacy. It's not just what they're promoting. It's the fact that they can't accept or see at this point how wrong it is. And that's a different set of problems. Because you might be able to say, to address, for example, men and women's sports, we can do that legally. But that won't, even if we do it legally, that's not going to change their perspective. That's not going to alleviate their brainwashing on the issue. That's a separate concept, a separate solution. And that solution is going to be education. That solution is going to be kindness. I know it sounds weird coming from me because I don't exactly promote much kindness, but it is. In this particular case, we can't just hammer them over the head with the truth. We've tried that. They just push back. So, in many ways, we have to expose them to what they're doing and make them understand that what they're doing is wrong. Just like you would try to take a sex offender who is having challenges understanding or grasping the wrongness of it. That might sound alien to us, but that's actually very common, by the way, in other cultures, where it's like, what? I didn't hurt her. I did the thing with her. I didn't harm her. She's fine. That's actually common in certain cultures. I didn't know that until recently. But apparently that's when that tells us a lot. Discussion for another day. So if we can try to coax people kindly, we can go after them hard with the law, and we go after them a little bit softer with understanding and appreciation of their right to be whoever they want to be. Just keep it out of the schools. Keep it away from my kids. Keep it away from his kids, her kids. Keep it off the public airwaves. I'm not saying, he just suggested that anybody who's gay or transgender shouldn't be on television. No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying stop promoting the idea. Because again, we're talking about a permanent life-changing event. So don't try to convince people they're transgender. Leave that. You always say, it should be between a doctor and a woman. Great. Well, this should definitely be between a child and a parent. And if that parent decides to get a doctor involved, great. They can do that. But it should not be with any outside forces pushing and promoting the idea to that child. Speaking of between a doctor and a woman, I am going to be focusing a lot more of this show on the abortion issue. As I've said before, I oppose Donald Trump's and JD Vance's stance on abortion. I know that they want abortion to be up to the states. It's a very acceptable stance for many. It's not acceptable to me. And I'm not going to go out there and try to convince Trump or Vance to go to a nationwide abortion ban, because here's the thing. They would never get one anyway. Even if they ran on it and won. Let's say they ran on, we want a nationwide abortion ban and they won, 0% chance that if Mike Johnson is able to get a slim victory, if he's able to be Speaker of the House, and if the Senate with their 52, 53, 54, 55 maybe senators, 0% chance that they would put a nationwide abortion ban of any sort on Trump's desk. 0. They wouldn't do it. They would say, no, sir, we can't do it this time because we got the midterm elections coming up and it's a bad issue and 63% of it, blah, blah. They wouldn't do it. So, which is why I thought it was funny that the Democrats picked that as the issue, knowing, and they knew, by the way, as they were running on it, they knew that it was the issue that wasn't a non-issue. They kept saying that if you elect Trump, there's going to be a nationwide abortion ban, when that was literally impossible. So no, I'm not going to try to convince Trump to change his ways. I'm not going to try to convince JD Vance to go back to his old ways, because he used to be more pro-life. I don't know if he would go all the way to an abortion ban, but he was definitely more pro-life than taking the stance. He adopted Trump's stance as a vice president should. It's good. Yeah, good. I disagree, but it's still good that he did it, I guess, if that makes any sense. No, my fight on abortion is going to be not an abortion ban, because that's unrealistic. My fight will be more of a cultural battle. I want to again try to educate people. We have the tools available to us. We've seen what happens, the reactions. We've seen those viral videos of people who they're being interviewed. Somebody's talking to them. Pulled, hey, come here, let's talk about this. They start asking me, are you pro abortion or pro choice, or whatever? Oh yeah, no, totally. I believe that a woman is between a woman and her doctor. I don't think that any Well, okay. Well, have you ever seen what an abortion actually does? It's like, here, let me show you this minute and a half video of what an abortion actually does. And they're saying, you see that, yeah, they a lot of times they'll start tearing up or maybe even crying and like, I had no idea, I really didn't know. Look, we just have to spread the truth about abortion. We have to humanize. We have to humanize the preborn baby that's in the womb. That's it. Because once we do that, then I would argue that maybe 20% of America would still be, maybe not even that much. I would say, well, let's go to 10%. I would say maybe 10% of Americans, the most callous, cold-hearted leftists out there, would be the only ones that would embrace the no limits to abortion stance that the Democrat Party has taken. 10%. Because once they see what an abortion actually does, especially late-stage abortions, they will realize that there needs to be limits. And is that as good as an abortion ban? Absolutely not. But it's a step towards what I would hope to be a future America that is free of abortion. That's what I want. And is that going to take a year? No, it'll take a lot longer than a year. It'll probably take longer than a decade. I don't know. We don't know. Could be shorter than that, but I think that we could, as long as we get Americans to become aware about the realities of abortion, I think that we could get to that point. And then the debate will be where it really should be. It's like, is there an abortion ban, or do we make exceptions for rape, incest, health of the mother, or, is it at 6 weeks, 20 weeks, whatever? Those are the discussions that can lead us to the point to where we can minimize and eventually eliminate abortions altogether. That's what I would want for this nation. So I'm going to be focusing on that. And I know many of you out there oppose my view. I'm a hardcore, whatever, extremist. I want abortions banned altogether. But that doesn't mean that I won't be happier than I am today if we start to add certain restrictions, common sense restrictions, as many people out there, including many of you, would argue. Look, if we could get to, say, the standard operating procedure in every or even most Republican states would be, heartbeat bill of some sort, or, restrictions up to a certain period of time. I get it. I disagree. I can't accept it, but at least I can acknowledge that that's better than what we have in many places. One of the things that's not being talked about during yesterday's election, not nearly as much as it should. So I think it was like 7 states that codified abortion, sometimes even in their state constitutions. That's the wrong direction to head. And that was sort of the trade-off. It was the unfortunate trade-off, but that was the trade-off. I think that knowing that was happening, unfortunately, helped Donald Trump. People thinking that they'll be able to, he says leave it to the states, and I'll be able to affect it in my state and make abortion more open and available. So then it's like, okay, well, now I can vote for Donald Trump. We don't want to hear this. None of you want to hear this. But that is the reality, that depending on which states people were in and which measures that were being discussed, that was taken into consideration. They might not even have consciously realized it. These voters didn't know it in many cases. A lot of them did. But by codifying abortion in their state, that allowed them to vote for Trump, because they felt that his stance of leave it to the states meant that they could have their cake and eat it too. It's a horrible analogy using the situation, but it is what it is. So anyway, so my focus will be on winning from the cultural perspective. I'm not going to try to get anybody to change any laws, okay? Maybe sometimes, if they're extreme. But what I will focus on is trying to disseminate information about abortions, ways that we can fight it, because this really has always come down to the cultural war anyway. And I've been saying that since before Roe v. Wade was overturned. This is about winning back the culture of the United States of America, and that, everything I've said so far, maybe not. Well, yeah, I guess to some extent, even defeating corporate media, ending the woke lunacy, and addressing the abortion issue. These are all cultural issues. And in many ways, they are faith-based issues. Man, I talk a lot. I'm looking at my time, and it's like, geez. I haven't even gotten through half the list, and we're coming up on a break. Let me squeeze one more in. The bureaucratic state. This is something that this show and all of my sites have talked about in the past, but I don't think I've ever made it a real focus. And the reason for that is because it's a challenging topic to discuss because it's hard to quantify, right? Sometimes, I mean, if you were to take 1,000 Trump voters and ask them during his first term, was he able to do damage to the bureaucratic state, or did he advance it? And you would get mixed results. I mean, some people will say, "Oh yeah, no, he was cutting some regulations. He had that one rule, didn't he? That where if you want to add a regulation, you had to cut 2 regulations." And that was clever, and that was great for fodder. But we need to take a scalpel and hold it in our hand, and then take a chainsaw and just start going to work. You go chop off as much of the bureaucratic state as possible with a chainsaw, and then you look at what's left, and then you start taking the scalpel to the remnant, the things that are there. You could reduce the American bureaucratic state by 99% and have a far better, more operational government than it is today. And I want to spend a great deal of time on my show explaining that bit by bit, piece by piece. And it's not just at the national level, it's also at the state and the local level. We just have too much government. I mean, I'm going to I'll become Ron Paul if I have to. Nobody can be Ron Paul, by the way. Gosh, I hope he comes into the Trump administration in some form or fashion. That'd be great. Let's take a quick break, and when we get back,
I'm Jonathan Rose, CEO of Genesis Gold Group. As Americans, we work hard every day to provide for our families and ensure their future. But with the uncertainty facing our economy, it is more important than ever to safeguard your wealth and protect your retirement savings. Educated investors look to safe haven assets to shield themselves from the economic storm. Tangible assets like gold and silver can provide stability, security, and most importantly, peace of mind. In 1997, the Taxpayer Relief Act allowed Americans to hold physical precious metals like gold and silver in their IRAs for the first time. Today, Genesis Gold Group helps our clients transfer existing IRAs, 401ks, and other retirement accounts into physical gold and silver, tax and penalty free. With thousands of satisfied clients, 5-star reviews, and fully accredited with the Better Business Bureau, our experienced team is here to help you navigate the process. Start to finish, now is the time to educate yourself on the importance of a diversified portfolio, including tangible assets like gold and silver. Call now to receive our free wealth protection kit and digital dollar defense guide. Call now and we'll include our extremely popular silver prepper bar free when you open your account. Add it to your IRA or have it sent to your home. Call Genesis Gold Group today at 800-200-GOLD. Prepper bar only available through Genesis Gold Group.
In a world of uncertainty, be prepared with Silver Prepper Bars. Introducing the Silver Prepper Bar. Crafted from 0.999 pure silver and proudly made in the USA. Portable, perforated, and easily tradable, the Silver Prepper Bar is your lifeline in times of crisis. Silver Prepper Bars provide peace of mind. Don't leave your future to chance. Order your Silver Prepper Bars now at prepperbar.com. Silver Prepper Bars, ready for whatever tomorrow brings. Order now.
one of the things that I will be focusing on with this show, and I think that every Patriot should be focused on more so than we ever really have in the past, is making sure that that Agenda 47 is fulfilled. And that means there's a lot of legislation that has to be passed. Legislation, for example, pertaining to voter fraud, which we'll get to in a second, but also legislation regarding the border, obviously, legislation regarding inflation, and we need to protect in as many ways as possible. Protect our women and girls from the aforementioned woke lunacy that is spreading across there. And look, I'm not big on on legislative solutions when it comes to cultural issues such as the trans lunacy supremacy agenda. But in this case, I think it's okay. It's okay to step in and outlaw certain types of activities that defy common sense, that aren't protected by constitutional rights. There's no constitutional right for a man to be in a woman's sport, or in particular for boys to play in girls' sports at the high school level or younger or older. It doesn't matter. Age doesn't matter as much as if we're going to fund schools, for example, why should we be funding this abomination, this attempt to harm? Because at the end of the day, that's really what it is. This is an attempt to harm girls. So, and I'm not just talking about physical harm, though there is that. We've seen that in volleyball. We've seen that in other sports where girls are harmed because boys are allowed to play against them in sports. Now, I'm talking about the harm of, for example, we've seen those track meets where you think, man, what is that girl in fourth place thinking? She's not going to get to go to the state championship. She's trained her whole life, and some dude who's pretending to be a girl prevented her from being able to fulfill her dream, to have an opportunity to advance her life, because that's really what it comes down to in many of these cases. So we are going to focus a lot on the legislative agenda, but I want to talk about the voter fraud aspect of it, because it's something that we didn't fix. We never fixed it. It's not fixed yet. We beat it. God beat it by making this election too big to rig. But why don't we just eliminate the rigging altogether? It can be done. It can be done legislatively. It can be done through changes made not just at the federal level, but also at the state, county, city, and local levels. This has to be a focus. We cannot go into the next midterm election, which is only 2 years away. We cannot go into the next midterm election with rampant, widespread voter fraud, because we will have a repeat of 2022 when there was supposed to be this massive red tsunami, and it didn't materialize because of rampant, widespread voter fraud. I still believe in, and congratulations to Doug Mastriano for winning back his Senate seat in the state Senate, but he really should be governor of the state of Pennsylvania right now. I believe he was robbed. I believe that, as much as I did not like Mehmet Oz, I believe that he was robbed, that there's no chance that the voters actually put John Fetterman. I mean, John Fetterman's been seemingly okay lately, but I remember, if you just watch the debate between him and Dr. Oz, that was a disaster for him, and yet somehow he allegedly still won. But again, the past is the past. We can't afford to have that happen again in 2026. So we have 2 years to get that fixed, and it needs to be fixed legislatively at every level. And if you here, watch this. This is a what is it? An election expert or a systems expert. Bottom line, this is a hacker, and the way that he explains it, these machines are, of course, hackable.
Hey everybody, it's Ryan Montgomery, also known as Zero Day, and I was just checking out the tweet from Steven Crowder, and it looks like there's a wireless device being used in a voting facility, and clearly that's against the law. So they wanted to get my opinion on it, and I'm going to just give you this. So every single year, I go to this event called DEF CON, which is a hacking convention in Las Vegas. There's usually about 30,000 people there. One of those sections within this conference is called the Voting Village. And since 2017, to my knowledge, there's been vulnerabilities found in voting machines. Up until 2024, there were multiple vulnerabilities found in the current voting machines that are being used right now. The odds of them being fixed in time for the election are, absolutely unbelievably low. So I don't think that is something that has happened. I would check into this for yourself, and no matter which party you're voting for, I believe we should have a fair election, and stay safe and leave any questions below. Thanks.
We cannot have fair elections or free elections as long as we have this. And it's not just the voting machines. Let's face it. There are a billion different changes that need to be made with our election system. I still haven't read the story, but there is a story over at revolver.news that addresses, I believe, I haven't read it yet, but based upon the headline, it seems to address those issues. It's talking about how crazy our election system is. And this was written before Trump won, and it noted that the election system is crazy even if Trump wins. So now I'm super excited about reading. I haven't read it yet, but I will. Maybe, I don't think we're going to do another segment, so maybe tomorrow I will present that story to you. But for now, I want to focus on the desperate need to fix it. We should not have month-long voting. I mean, these are protocols that were brought in as a result of COVID. Well, why do we still have them? Why do we still have such early voting? Why do we still have ubiquitous mail-in ballots in many, many states? It doesn't make any sense. And it was never intended to be like this. And the system wasn't broken before. Even Democrats, prior to Joe Biden getting the nomination, even Democrats, as late as 2020, were opposed to the voting machines. Because why? Because they were hackable. And now, we've got ballot harvesting in many states. We have the ability to not show voter ID, to allow non-citizens to vote. This is ludicrous. We can't just hope every single year in every single race we're going to have too big to rig. We just need to stop the rigging. And the show is going to be doing just that, trying to expose and pressure those who can stop it, who can fix this, because it can be fixed. We just have to go back to what we were doing before. It wasn't broken. Hanging Chads notwithstanding, it wasn't broken. So why are we allowing it to continue to be broken? And in many ways, we're embracing it. It reminds me a lot of the scene in the Star Wars prequels. Okay, was it Attack of the Clones? I don't know. But basically, they've got this army made, and they're against this army, right? But they had this clone army made by somebody they don't know, and all of a sudden they're like, oh, well, we got this army, we're fighting a bunch of droids, let's use the army. And then the Jedi used the army, and of course, then they had executive order, operation, whatever, 66, and that was supposed to be used to kill off the Jedi, and it almost completely worked. No, that's fiction. But I still get reminded of that every time. It's like, okay, well, let's go vote early. Yeah, did it work this time? You betcha. Absolutely. Was it the right strategy? Absolutely, it was the right strategy. I have I'm not going to try to say we shouldn't have had it, but we shouldn't have been able to have it, and neither should the Democrats. We should, we used early voting to our advantage this time. We might not be able to do that next time, or the time after that, or the time after that. We're one massive Democrat victory away from having single-party rule forever. And one of the ways that we can stop that is to codify voter integrity measures. It's got to be done. That should be a top priority of every Republican legislator at every level, and every Republican executive at every level should be promoting it. I had mentioned earlier about corporate media needing to be taken down. But at the very least, they need to learn a lesson. And I've been trying to figure out how to work this in. Scott Jennings over at CNN, he's the only lucid person over there. He did a fantastic job of putting out information. It's basically, a soliloquy. Watch this.
This is a mandate. He's won the national popular vote for the first time for a Republican, for the first time since 2004. This is a big deal. This isn't backing into the office. This is a mandate to do what you said you were going to do. Get the economy working again for regular working class Americans, fix immigration, try to get crime under control, try to reduce the chaos in the world. This is a mandate from the American people to do that. I think I'm interpreting the results tonight as the revenge of just the regular old working class American, the anonymous American who has been crushed, insulted, condescended to. They're not garbage. They're not Nazis. They're just regular people who get up and go to work every day and are trying to make a better life for their kids, and they feel like they have been told to just shut up when they have complained about the things that are hurting them in their own lives. I also feel like this election, as we sit here and pour over this tonight, is something of an indictment of the political information complex. I mean, we've been sitting around here for the last couple of weeks, and the story that was portrayed was not true. I mean, we were told Puerto Rico was going to change the election. Liz Cheney, Nikki Haley voters, women lying to their husbands. Before that, it was Tim Walz and the camo hats. Night after night after night, we were told all these things and gimmicks were going to somehow push Harris over the line, and we were just ignoring the fundamentals. Inflation, people feeling like that they were barely able to tread water at best. That was the fundamentals of the election. And so I think that both parties should always look at the results of an election and figure out what went right and what went wrong. But I think for all of us who cover elections and talk about elections and do this on a day-to-day basis, we have to figure out how to understand, talk to, and listen to the half of the country that rose up tonight and said, we've had enough.
Now, as much as I appreciate what Scott Jennings said there, I disagree. I to learn from this. I want them to keep being unhinged. I do. There was a time when I used to want to try to reform them. Now I just want them ignored. I want them to just, hey, guys, you're doing great. Keep doing what you're doing. We're just going to go somewhere else. We're going to watch Rogan. We're going to watch Bannon. We're going to watch Rucker. We're going to watch whoever, just not you. And I think that will hopefully have an impact without their assistance. They've already done enough. They've proven, they being corporate media, have proven that they're unsalvageable, in my humble opinion. It will take an overhaul. I'm talking up, down, left, right. It would take a complete overhaul. If we could have a truly unbiased media, that'd be fine. And when I say truly unbiased, I'm not saying 100% because I don't think that's possible. I don't think any news outlet can ever be truly fully unbiased because it's made up of humans, and humans cannot be truly unbiased. They might be able to be unbiased 80% of the time, 90% of the time. Some of them can be unbiased 94, 95% of the time. But there's always going to be a little bit that leaks in, no matter what, even if they don't realize it. Even if it's just in their expression of contempt that they try to hide but can't towards a particular person, or the way that they ask questions during interviews, or the questions that they pick. They can't truly be unbiased. And it's funny because the solution that somebody's going to offer, and there's probably already people offering it that I don't know about, but the solution is going to be, well, the only way to be unbiased is if we have the news delivered by artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is, by its very nature, unbiased. Well, that's not true. Artificial intelligence is biased by its own creator. Whoever programs this artificial intelligence, it's not self-programmed. There are those that are self-programming that can change, evolve, and that should terrify you. But there aren't ones that can create themselves. In other words, you can't just give it a base and say, build from there. They have to have context. And that context has to be delivered by a person. And that person is going to have biases. The context will have biases. If they're trying to pull everything from Wikipedia, we already know Wikipedia is loaded with biases. There is no possible way to create a truly unbiased artificial intelligence, even if that is the intention. Even if you try to, you strive to make the technology, the underlying technology, as unbiased as possible. The only way they can do that is to try to give equal sides or equal timing to both sides. But what if there's an issue that has three different perspectives, three different opposing views? How do you do that? And if you are able to do that through a matter of timing, who's to judge whether an artificial intelligent machine is able to properly understand, okay, well, I asked this candidate 5 questions, and I asked this candidate 5 questions, therefore it was unbiased, except the questions themselves might have been biased. Well, what about, but we picked 5 questions and we asked the same 5 questions of both candidates, therefore it was unbiased. But who came up with the questions? Every question will be biased in some form or fashion, or every question will weigh more favorably towards one candidate or another, unless they're giving identical answers, in which case, then what's the point of even having the questions asked? I think you get the idea. Point is that if we get close to or for us to be able to get close to a fully unbiased corporate media, we'd have to abolish the corporate side of that corporate media. In other words, you can't have corporate media that is unbiased towards, say, big pharma, unless you were to eliminate big pharma advertising, and that changes the paradigm within in the media industry. There are publications and news outlets out there that could not survive without the big checks that they're getting from big pharma. Nevertheless, I would be in favor of, and I'm not a fan of restrictions. My perspectives on limited government do carry over even to uncomfortable or inconvenient realities, such as, normally I wouldn't be in favor of banning big pharma from advertising. But here's the thing. And RFK does want to do that, by the way. He is going to recommend to Trump, once the White House is established, he will recommend to Trump, and hopefully through legislation, they'll be able to achieve a ban on big pharma advertising through corporate media. The reason being is that there's no reason for them to advertise other than for influence. Okay? You might say, I guess to some extent, they might be able to increase sales with your, here's this drug, ask your doctor. But I mean, nobody's sitting there thinking to themselves, oh my gosh, one drug's going to, if that drug spends a lot more money, they're going to sell a lot more. I think, hopefully, many, if not most of you, remember the old Ozempic ads. Were they different? Were they special? Were they different? Were they better? No. Ozempic was pushed as being, by doctors and by the pharmaceutical companies themselves, as being effective, being safe. And to be clear, it's definitely not safe. But I'm not a doctor, not a scientist. That's just the studies that I've read. I urge you to read more from people like Dr. Joseph Mercola, who's covered Ozempic pretty, I would say, maybe not comprehensively, but in depth. He's done a very good job. I've read 2 of the articles so far, and they are, not that I was considering Ozempic. Yesterday, it was sort of funny. Just a little side note. We were going into the election, and I've been beside myself about this. Not out of nervousness, I trust God's plan, but it's more along the lines of I want to be Johnny on the spot. One of the challenges we have with the Liberty Dailies, because with the news aggregation industry being so competitive, we have to be Johnny on the spot. And that means that with our small team, we have to be there pretty much 24/7. Okay. I mean, even when I take naps on days that I'm covering the site, I make sure that my wife is monitoring the news in case something big happens, and to wake me up the moment that it happens and let me get the story up on the libertydaily.com. Same thing with americafirstreport.com. In both cases, we're trying to be as ready as possible. So I decided that in the days leading up to the election, I decided to do an extended fast. So I started on technically Saturday morning. So Friday night, late Friday night, early Saturday morning, I think at 2 a.m. Saturday morning, I stopped eating. It was a water fast. I was just drinking black coffee, water, green tea, drinking things that you're allowed to drink, and I wasn't eating anything. I would eat salt, Himalayan sea salt, to make sure that I kept my electrolytes. Plus, I had an electrolyte drink. Anyway, so I started that, and I was continuing on through Election Day. And one of the things they do tell you for sure is that you never, ever, ever want to be fasting and not getting enough sleep. It's a very, very bad combination. If you're going to fast, use that fast as an opportunity to rest, and that does include getting appropriate amounts of sleep. Anyway, the night before the election, I was just working. Next thing I know, the sun's up, so I just keep going. We're going into election night. The stuff's coming in, and I start realizing, wow, I have been up fasting on my 4th day of fasting. I had been up for like 37 hours straight, and plus I'm fasting. My levels were good, but I started getting a little concerned. So I went ahead and broke fast, and then continued on through the night. And it was great. point I'm trying to get at is that as effective as Ozempic is, I guarantee you the weight that I lost in those 4 days of fasting, I would have lost had I been taking Ozempic. Gosh, what a weird aside to what did that have to do with anything? Who knows? I don't know. I'm at a loss for words myself. So I want to end today's show. And let's real clear, just to wrap it up, to clear things up, I should say. I'm extremely happy about the amazing blessing that we have received, and perhaps more blessings to come, maybe not, but the amazing blessing we have received, this grant of too big to rig, it was given to us. We cannot squander it. We must seize this opportunity, take advantage of the blessing, honor what has been done on our behalf to save our nation, and we must put in the work. I'm going to be making changes to this show to that end, and I hope that you all will continue to watch. Make sure to give a thumbs up for sure, because those help, apparently. I don't know anything about these algorithms, okay? But I do know that if you thumbs up and subscribe to my videos, that's going to get more people to watch the video somehow, some way. So that's first and foremost. If you're watching on any of the various channels, or if you want to see if I'm available on any other channels, you can go find me at jdrucker.com/find. With that said, I want to leave you with this beautiful scene. This was, I believe it was, who was it? Now I forgot. Was it Lisa Booth? I think it was Lisa Booth, who posted this. This is following Trump's speech, his victory speech, on election night, technically the day after election morning. Following his speech, a bunch of patriots got together to sing a song. Now, if it had been the Democrats, they would have been singing Nicki Minaj or Taylor Swift or some obscene song, or playing it and doing weird, crazy dances. But when you get a bunch of patriots together, it's a bit different. So I will end with that. Lord willing, I will be back very soon with another episode. But in the meantime, you'll stay strong, stay safe, and God bless. After Trump was elected president, I received a couple of communications from people. One via phone, well, text, and the other one via Twitter, X, direct message. People asking me, "Hey, now that Trump's back in office, is the economy going to get better?" And I said, "Yeah, in some ways it definitely will. Obviously, I mean, just Trump's presence alone will have a dramatic impact on the economy, and it will take things to the next level." But with that said, the threats still remain. Trump, Harris, didn't matter. They're still pushing, they being the powers that be, are still pushing for central bank digital currencies. They're still pushing for de-dollarization and the rise of BRICS. They're still pushing for the advancement of a worldwide economy. And while Trump will do everything in his power to prevent that, to at least slow it down, some of it is not within even the power of the United States of America itself. And this is why there is no reason, and you can see by the gold prices, there is no reason to doubt physical precious metals as a proper way to hedge against what is coming, because it's still coming. There were certain scenarios that would have happened if Kamala Harris had won, and there are certain scenarios that will happen now that President Trump has won. And those scenarios still point in the same exact direction. That's the reason why even central banks are still buying up as much gold and silver as possible. That's why banks, financial institutions are recommending to their people, buy as much gold and silver as possible. I work with a faith-driven gold company. There are a lot of gold companies out there that get recommended by hosts. The one that I like happens to be driven by faith, and they actually do a tremendous job versus the competition. You can check out Genesis Gold Group by going to rumblegold.com. That's rumblegold.com, or read my testimony over at jdrucker.com/gold.